Hello, everybody, and welcome to the very second the Mercy Queen podcast show. I actually want you guys to take note of this outfit. It's red with white polka dots, and I'm starting the first element of this podcast, or the first day of the series, of a book that I wrote called Love Me First, Love Me Last. It's a self-help book about the evolution of what it means to love yourself. And coming from someone who didn't love herself at all in her childhood, I don't think I really learned to love myself until my 40s. And yes, I am not 28. I am in my 40s and above. But having said that, sorry to let you guys all down. Just kidding. No, but yeah, I know I look like 28. I know I got you. It's all good, But it's the makeup. But no, and the sunglasses. But having said that, so I wanted you guys to look at this dress, and at the end of today's show, I'm going to remind you of this benevolent dress. It is just so beautiful. It is the image of beauty right now, and it looks like a maxi nightie, but I'll share more about the dress towards the end of our first show. And so, in the name of God, I begin. So the first chapter of the book is, there's going to be, like I said, 10 components of the book that talk about the evolution of self-love. And first of all, my mom actually has always told me this since childhood, that not all 5 fingers are the same, right? And so when we're talking about not all 5 fingers are the same, I'm trying to kind of, in every chapter of each headline, to have 5 like kind of intertwined concepts to talk about the center concept of that topic. So the first, basically, and also keep in mind, this is all scrap. I haven't gotten it published. I'm still working on it. And the book is titled Love Me First, Love Me Last. It's supposed to be self-help, but the first one is love me first, and then in quotations, the struggle is real. All right. Because I think sometimes loving yourself for some of us has been a struggle and is a struggle and will continue to be a struggle. So I want to address those things. Now, first of all, I just want to stop talking, and I just want to tell the story. So my great aunt, she passed away when my son was born, the year my son was born, and she's the one who shared the story with me. And I don't know where to render quoting it. It's the story that many Indians may know in India, and I don't know where it's from, but it's not an original story, but it's just a story that was passed around to me from an aunt who I'm going to narrate the story. So once upon a time, there was a father and a son. And the father told the son that, "Oh, my son, my beloved son, I want to teach you a lesson today. And we're going to go through 3 different villages with a donkey. And as we're going through these 3 different villages, please remain silent but observe." So, and he said, "Whatever I command you to do, each village, follow my command." So the son was obedient. And so in the first village, the father told the son, "You stand by the donkey and hold its reins, and I will sit on the donkey." Okay? So as they're going through the village, you can hear people looking at the father and son, and they're kind of talking like, "Oh my God, look at the father, how cruel he is. He's making his son walk. And he's making his son walk. How cruel is the father to not share the donkey with the son in this heat," right? They should be riding together, right? So the son observed this, and so now they're in the second village. Now in the second village, the father instructs the son that, "Now you sit on my donkey," right? Thinking that he must be tired. It's been a long walk, 2-mile walk. "And I will walk now." He was a healthy father. "I will walk and I'll hold, the reins of the donkey." Now you go through second village and you got people, "Oh my God, look at that son. He is making his father walk." I mean, what kind of son would make a father walk in this heat with a donkey? I mean, so bad, right? So they're pointing fingers now. So son observed. Now go to third village. And this is just an experiment between father and son. Keep in mind, everyone was all good. The donkey was good, the father was good, the son was good. This is just a science experiment, right? Now the father says, "We both shall hold the donkey together, walk in front of the donkey, and let the donkey be all by itself and go through the third village." Now you got people saying, "Oh my God, look at the estúpidos. The estúpidos have a donkey and none of them are riding it. It is so hot." So I would like to now continue with the story and explain to you more about it. But for now, I'm going to call it the 3 donkey story, like the 3 kings story, the 3 kingsmen, because in short, what the complexity of what the story is trying to say in simplified form is that no matter what you do, whether you're It's almost like MBNL says this in his Teardrop song, that every saint has him a past and every sinner has him a future. And I know I mentioned this in the last podcast, but the reason I mention it again is because the reality is that everyone is constantly in evolution phase. So what I wanted to speak to about the story also is that the main thing that I wanted to get to about the story is that everyone's always going to pass judgment about what another person does. And, one thing that I realized in my life about learning self-love is that you can't look for yourself out there. You got to look for yourself in here, right? And looking for yourself in here doesn't mean that you're looking from the eyes of others. It means you're looking from here at the core every single day, from your own heart perspective, your own intellect perspective, and saying, did I do right? And if I didn't do right, can I reverse and make the wrong a right in this lifetime, period? That's what human evolution is, and being able to accept mistakes and be forgiving to yourself, but also set limitations and barriers to things that are actually unforgivable. And at the same time, try to come to a peaceful place of forgiveness for what you perceive as unforgivable. So, and I'm going to drink my business. For those of you guys come to my crib, you guys can have apple juice, cranberry juice, no red wine. It's my cranberry juice tequila shot. Is that right? Okay. All right. So when I say, love me first, the struggle is real. The reason I want to say that the struggle is real in parentheses is because any human being, especially at a child level, ranging from like 3 years old to maybe 10, that has experienced emotional, physical, spiritual, psychological abuse, sexual abuse on any level, is going to have trauma. And the thing about understanding this in a very deep level is that at a young, tender age, when things are supposed to be normal, quote unquote normal, where a child is supposed to laugh and be fed and feel love and not feel criticized for how they feel and be able to smile and just offer that full light of themselves, if they're hit with any kind of that trauma, I'm going to share with you that the rose petals will fall. The rose petals will fall, the heart will hurt. And having said to that, it may lead to other things, sometimes drug addictions, sometimes for women it may lead to, other things that may not have even wanted to be down the path, obviously, right? So I wanted to say that as a kind of a preface to this, and I do expand a little bit about my own personal experiences with this kind of trauma. I went to a Catholic and Christian school up to 3rd grade, and I'm going to share a little bit very briefly, but when I went to the Catholic and Christian school, I was really, really happy. And the reason my parents put me in the private school is when I was in kindergarten at the school district that I was in, the 6th graders were coming to the kindergartners and teaching us the F word, right? So here I am like, Mom, F this and F that. And she'd be like, you can't say that, can't say that. We're Muslim, can't say that. Mom, F this. And she put soap in my mouth, like wouldn't stop, right? So the next thing they did is put us in Christian and Catholic schools up to 3rd grade. There were 2 different schools. I don't want to name them. And I was extremely happy. Extremely, extremely happy. But little problem for my parents. I would come back and I'd be like, he's got the whole world in his hands, right? And I'd be like, Kumbaya, my Lord. So my parents were like, we're Muslim, it's not going to work, right? Because at that time, in the 80s, we were not allowed to really be taken out of mass and stuff like that. So I would do it and I would enjoy it, right? I would enjoy singing the songs. And so then my parents eventually switched houses and moved to a different region, a different part of the area that I live in. When we moved to the different, and first of all, I want to say that, and I want to say this, there was 3 girls in my class, and this was when I was like in kindergarten, which means I was 5 or 6. And or between that and 3rd grade, and they were Andrea, Mary, and Christina. Okay, and keep in mind, I can't remember their faces now. I haven't seen them in over like 30 years, but I can still, as a child, remember their faces. And I blocked out a lot of my childhood. And I was sitting at a restaurant, and a Muslim family was there. Like a woman was a mother to me, and her son said salam to me. And he said, by the way, Andrea said hi. And I'm like, Andrea? Who's Andrea? And he's like, remember from kindergarten. And my heart just dropped to the floor. Like, oh my God, like Andrea remembers me? Like, how is that even conceivable? Because I remember her but I was surprised that she remembered me at all, right? So keep in mind that memories, good and bad, from childhood can either scar you or exemplify your legacy to the betterness of yourself. And I want to say that because it's hard for kids. And I also want to say right now, so having spoken to that again, when I went into a new school, I was predominantly an all-Caucasian school at the time. The Bay Area at that time was filled with very, very few Indians. Like, oh, what's up? There's an Indian in Palo Alto. There's an Indian in Berkeley, right? And I remember like maybe 2 or 3 Indian kids in a predominantly, all Caucasian school, maybe Mexican, Caucasian. And, and it has nothing to do with race, but I remember being called effing Gandhi. I remember being, by specifically 3 girls, and I remember their names, I do, and I remember them hitting me physically almost every single day, punching me, calling me effing Gandhi. So dealing with kind of at a young age racism and not being able to deal with it, right? And I'm also sharing this vulnerability with you to share that even there was a time that my house was behind a creek, and I specifically remember like a young girl that hated me also literally like kicked me so hard in the back that I rolled down the creek and into the creek water. And also keep in mind, like, for some people who are going through this kind of bullying or this kind of trauma, you don't always got mommy and daddy to help you out, right? Sometimes mommy and daddy are fulfilling the hustle. Sometimes they're working 18-hour shifts to make money to feed you. So sometimes when they come home, they may not even be super nice to you either. They might be cranky with you, not because they don't love you, but because they're also tired and trying to be the provider, the superhero of your needs, right? And they're not understanding that there might be some emotional stuff going on with a child that a child doesn't even know how to express. And sometimes when you even go to the principal or you go to a school, it becomes worse. So then what, right? Also keep in mind, so I'm just sharing these things with you to like share that these traumatic events that happened to me at a young age literally deteriorated my self-esteem. And I can speak to it now when I'm 46. Yes, I'm 46 already. When I'm 46, I can say that those were the moments in my crucial life. And my mom was a phenomenal mother. She used to work and she used to get up in the morning to cook home food for us. She was a taskmaster mother, meaning gymnastics, teaching us Arabic, Quran, academics. She was on her game. She was always trying to, and my father was working 18-hour shifts. And in 18-hour shifts, like I said, when he came home, he was present. And my mom was not necessarily totally emotionally present, but she was trying to spread her wings and learn what it meant to be an American and trying to offer her daughter and son the best of what America has to offer, which is education, right? Because education will lead to opportunity. So a lot of the times when I was bullied like that, I had an aunt, may God have mercy on her soul, who lived with me, and she didn't speak English. And I used to come home and she used to kind of see my heart hurt. And when she'd see my heart hurt, she knew something was going on, but we couldn't speak to it. So my question to all of you is, when you can't speak to it as a child, when you can't put words to it, right? Then what do you have left is hurt. And what does that hurt do? It just breaks your heart. It breaks your heart. It shatters it in pieces. And you got no one to gather the pieces. And you don't even know what the pieces meant and where you are, who you are. And then you're basically left in some ways like a sculptable mold to whoever comes your way, good or bad. And then maybe it'll take you to a premise of, she's like looking at me, what I'm saying is that, an example what I'm trying to say is that in trying to find love, in trying to find acceptance, it may take you to things that are not good. And what I mean by that, even friends that are not good. You might find a crew that really accepts you that's maybe selling drugs, right? So what I'm saying is sometimes the people that'll be loyal to you and offer you that love, may not be the right choice necessarily. And that's what I'm speaking to, because my person, I don't want to say her name, kind of looked at me like, what the hell is she talking about now? And so I'm answering to that. Is sometimes in trying to find that radical acceptance of yourself, when you're looking outward, you may not find it at the right source, right? So does that make sense? Okay. So now what I want to say about the struggle is real, and the evolution, right, is what we're going to go through in this hopeful one day published book of what it means to now develop self-love and what it all means. I'm going to take a quick break and I'm going to be right back. Sometimes relationships are complex, but when I married him, I remember for the first 2 years of my marriage, after graduating from college, and that's to a very prestigious college, I was 2 years kind of in the house, just very depressed. I was trying to get jobs, worked for kindergarten for a week as a kindergarten teacher, because I was an English major, and just literally 2 years just kind of in the house, not driving much, not going out yet much, because I was suffering depression. And the one kindness that I remember that he did is that for 2 years, without a day fail, 5 days a week, he would come on my lunch break for a 10-minute drive and just spend an hour with me to check up on me, make sure I was okay. And when you look at someone in your life, you try to remember like the best of them, right? But in our marriage, he would always say that you will never love me and you'll never love anyone unless you love yourself. And he said that to me multiple years. And I never in my 20s, when I got married, 23, could really understand what he meant. And now that I know what it means to love myself distinctly and honorably, without regret, without remorse, solidification of love, from not loving myself at all, from having an extreme low self-esteem, I am able now to speak to it in a way that will hopefully convey to you what the evolution process was. So in the first, I don't want to say finger, but I said the first 5 fingers, all 5 fingers aren't the same. In the first description that I wanted to speak to, and give me a second. You may have to cut this, but is the first rule of thumb in the 5 under the headline of love me first, and the struggle is real, is embrace your imperfections. Why the hell not, right? And I want you guys, if you guys are watching, to maybe if you guys can get comfortable, we're gonna get a little zany X, but get comfortable if you guys can, and if you're even watching. While I read this poem to you guys, I really want you guys to try to actually close your eyes and try to sit down and be comfortable, as if you're laying down, if you're in prayer pose, whatever you are in your house. If there's any way that you can just get really comfortable and maybe even lie down and just shut your eyes while I read this poem to you. It is a poem by Dana Falls. I don't know if I'm saying her name correctly. And it's from her poetry titled Limitless. And so I'm going to ask you guys to once again get comfortable, take a minute, shut your eyes, and I'm going to read it to you. And this poem basically changed my life, and I'll share more about how and why and what after. The source of peace. Turning inward to the source of peace, I take refuge in the easy sigh of breath released. Awareness spirals behind the mind, finding quiet, a temporary respite from the storm of thought. I arrived here by the simplest route, using movement to grow still, choosing to follow breath into silence. The tensions I held onto like a shield disappeared when I finally allowed myself to feel. When I had a really hard time, I mentioned like in an MB Now video that I was in the psych ward once in my life, and we're gonna have that topic another day of how much fun it was. But met some really beautiful people there that, beautiful friendships. But anyways, I actually started going to a yoga class, and I never had done yoga, but my friends were recommending. I started practicing Kundalini yoga, and I met a very beautiful woman, and I don't want to name her without her permission, but I'm going to call her Jay, and because her name starts with J. And I started embracing the Kundalini practice. And sometimes when you have, for example, a religious preface, and people are doing mantras that you might think are against your religious belief, well, it's really simplified, right? In the sense, like if someone is saying Satnam, you could easily say Salah, or you could easily say Shalom, right? In other words, it's not what you say, it's how the practice makes you feel and what the practice intends for you. So the beauty of the practice is when you leave the practice, every time you leave the practice, the Kundalini practice is to, which I may actually have maybe as an interlude into our video, but it's basically like a mantra that you say in prayer pose, that may the long time sun shine upon you and all love surround you and the pure light within you guide your way on or shine your way on. And I'm actually gonna in my video maybe play it for you. The reason I loved this poem when I first heard it is it basically simplified the complexity of life, in the sense that everyone's always moving into a point of stillness, which is sleep, right? And for to some point, and everyone is somehow always kind of, I think it talks about choosing to follow breath into silence, right? The breath into silence is the desire to self-reflect, right? And it is the evolution and the necessity of self-reflection in order to get to a point of understanding of the self. And without understanding of the self, loving yourself is impossible. So the other thing that it talks about is the tensions I held on to like a shield. There's some things that as people we hold on to, and I'll give you an example, right? And I'm really going to speak to someone who's here because she mentioned this in an earlier discussion, but success is not defined by status, right? If status defines success, that means that anyone who is an elite billionaire and a successful career but has no good moral character and demoralizes people all day long, well then can success be defined by status? Question. All right. Number 2 is wealth defined by money, right? If wealth is defined by money, then if, like I said, if I'm really, really wealthy, but I'm like, mistreating people left and right without reflection, right? Or if I'm like using my wealth to, purchase young girls and sell them, is that wealth, right? Can you define that as wealth? And then happiness, right? So I said that status does not define, success is not defined by status, and wealth is not defined by wait, is it wealth what I say? I said wealth is not defined by monetary status, right? And then I think it also like happiness is not defined by material things. It's just not. Look at how many people have all the material wealth, and in sadness, I mean, as a person who kind of loves comedy and as a person who suffered severe depression, I constantly think about Robin Williams, even though he's long passed, because his memory stays with me of a man who had this beautiful, beautiful smile, and yet he didn't make it, right? The laughter he spread, the love he spread, the light he spread, somehow with all that light that he had to offer humanity, his light dimmed out for himself. And I only speak to him without wanting to cause any intended harm to anyone who loved him, but as a self-reflection of sometimes behind all the makeup, behind the hi, how are you, behind the what's up, I'm doing good, how are you, is a heart that's hurting, right? And what this poem allows is the simplicity of this. The simplicity and the secret of this poem, sorry, I gotta detach my phone, is it basically says, the tensions I held onto like a shield disappeared when I finally allowed myself to feel. We need to feel. If you are hurt by someone and they caused you hurt, that hurt is a feeling. And if your feeling turns to a pain that turns to depression, turns to a lack of movement, turns to an aggression, there's only 2 things that are going to come out of it. Either you're going to inwardly hurt yourself, or you're going to wake up one day and just shoot at someone, which is happening these days. And when I hear of these mass shootings, as much as it's hurtful to know that innocent people got hurt, because I sometimes wonder what was the thread of thought behind the shooter that just went out one day that may have seemed normal. Boom, 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 boom. I got a gun, right? Mama, I just shot a man down, And so that's kind of what I want you guys to think about, is allowing yourself to feel what you feel and not apologizing for it. Whether it's sadness, whether it's anger, and turning it into a positive movement, not a negative one. Whether it's guilt, inside out, right? All those emotions that we're trying to teach our kids through this cute little, Pixar movie, right? Those emotions are real, and bringing reality to permissify those emotions. So that's what I wanted to talk about, and I do it in my book a little bit better, but that's what I wanted to talk about number 1, which is, first one was embracing your imperfections, and why not? Because when you're allowing yourself to feel what you feel and honoring your feeling, then you're saying basically this: I'm okay with not being okay. And I'm okay with sharing that with you. And I'm okay with allowing you to know that I may need help, or I may need to be kind of withdrawing for a while, left alone. And being okay with imperfection is prominent and key to the status and success of the self-awareness to get to the movement of self-love. So I'm gonna take a break. So now we are going to go to point 2 of among the 5 fingers that I was talking about. And point 2 is the topic of self-awareness with apologies to self, with radical acceptance without apology. Now, what the hell does that mean? Let me explain to you. Does that make any sense? Okay. So a lot of times as people, we're kind of apologizing for things that, there's a difference between apologizing for things that should be apologized for, right? As humans, anger is an emotion, right? And like I just kind of mentioned before, that constantly pointing your anger inward is going to lead to depression, right? That's what a lot of people believe now that depression is that it's a lot of frustration focused inward, right? And as people, what we want to focus inward is the light that we have within us to spread it outward, right? And you know, in my day, sometimes when I go to bed, in my mind, I have these tasks that tomorrow I want to get these done. I mean, by this time, you know, in the evening, I have this wonderful date with my girlfriends that I used to work with for 17 years. It's kind of like a reunion. So you have things on your list: visiting your mom, going to work, going to school, whatever it is, writing this, doing that. So in terms of that bucket list, right, that you have in the day, the question is, when you reflect at nighttime in that day, in those interactions, did you behave well with everyone? Did you cuss out your son? Did you cuss out your husband? Were you kind of moody at work, right? And then also kind of allowing for acceptance of the different phases of that. Because one thing that I realized in self-awareness and reflection with apology is that the main person in life that you need to be able to forgive yourself for is yourself. And apologize to yourself and say, I forgive you if I wasn't. But then also, like yesterday, I got a friend who came over and I told him not to honk, and he honked, right? Now you got the Mercy Queen saying, don't honk, and he's honking. Well, Shabana lost, whoa, she got a little crazy on him, right? But I couldn't sleep till 1 o'clock in the morning because I thought, oh my God, what am I doing, right? And the next thing that I'll get to in different chapters of the book is that when something becomes too toxic, or even if it becomes toxic and it's a situation that you cannot get out of, maybe it's a parent, maybe it's a husband, you got kids, you don't feel comfortable, right? Maybe you're in another country and that male is the provider and you can't leave, right? You don't have anywhere else to go, right? So those are kind of things that Mercy Mediterranean hopefully wants to resolve in its impact, is that to empower women, children, and men. And I also want to say that some of these hardships that I speak of, they're not preclusive only to women. They're not just women that may sometimes be victimized by certain things that happen in our world, right? Having said that, okay, so what I was getting to is the concept of being able to forgive yourself for things that, and I wanted to speak to just kind of like a real, quick story about forgiving yourself. So in 2018, I went to Mecca, Medina with my mom and my dad. And I went for the Hajj, and it was the most beautiful experience in the world. Because keep in mind, whether you are like a beggar living in the slum of India, or like the elite, a powerful, rich, maybe if you were Bill Gates, you're side by side in a white garment that does not differentiate you by monetary status. It's all like, it's a beautiful experience to go on the Hajj. I went on a pilgrimage, and I was in a point in my life where I was struggling with something that I felt I did wrong. And I came back, and it was maybe 10, 15 years later, I ended up in 2014 now. Wait, no, not 2014. Wait, I'm getting the years wrong. No, 1998. Yeah, 1998 I went to the Hajj. Now 2014 I end up kind of in ER, and that was the kind of time that I was close to being like in the hospital, mentally in the hospital, admitted, right? And that's another story that I don't want to share today. But the reason I'm sharing this is I went on a pilgrimage. And I asked God for forgiveness. And I came back thinking, I'm good, right? But the funny thing is that it wasn't until 2014 that I walked home as if in a moonlit night, as if I was walking at the same time of Hajj. So the Hajj was going on, but I was in the United States. And the reason the story is important is I was walking at like 2 in the morning by myself from the hospital, which is like maybe 8 miles towards my home, at night by myself. And I'm doing prayer and looking at the sky. And I shouldn't have been walking, but I was walking. And when I came home to my car, and I swear to God, I don't know how I got there because no one was in my car. I kind of opened my car, I got home to get something, and I saw a little note that said, Hajj Mubarak, which means congratulations for the Hajj. And a light just turned on that, oh my God, I had done the pilgrimage and asked forgiveness from God for something that I thought I did wrong, that was really bad, and yet I didn't forgive myself. I left Mecca, Medina not forgiving myself. And until I went through this motion of pain and discomfort and mental insanity, and then walking the night again as if praying to God, did I realize that that was the moment in 2014 that my actual Hajj was accepted, in my opinion. Because in order for me to ask forgiveness to someone else or from someone else, I need to forgive myself. And that always comes core to what my husband is saying, love yourself first. If you're going to be good to someone else and offer someone else DoorDash because they're sick, for example, you want to be there for a friend, but you don't think you're worth the money for the DoorDash yourself, you're worth it for yourself. So that's what I wanted to speak to about self-awareness with forgiveness and compassion to yourself. That every day when you wake up, you don't necessarily need to rewind with all the other things like how much money did I make in my business, or how did I interact with people, and how did I interact with myself? Do I gotta rewind and maybe say, hey, I'm sorry, Jennifer at work, yesterday I was having a bad day, can I give you a hug? And that's okay. And just also keep in mind that if someone does not want to forgive you and you've apologized at least 3 times, they don't want to forgive, you also got to back away, because you can't force someone into forgiveness. Okay? That's really, really important. If you feel like you've done someone harm and you've been trying to contact them for 6 years and every day you're leaving a message and they don't pick up, if they need 6 years in a day, give them what they need. Don't burden someone when you're trying to offer an apology, but also let go of it in your own heart. Protect your own heart. Allow yourself to be human. If you're having a bad day and you have to go to work because you have to make ends meet, allow yourself to say, hey, I'm tired. Or if your father's sick in the hospital and you need to cry, allow yourself to let those tears fall down. You don't always have to put the makeup face on, which I'm wearing makeup right now, but anyways. But the other part of that is not only that, self-awareness, and in terms of acceptance of with forgiveness, is radical acceptance of yourself. And so now I'm going to speak to that, about radically accepting yourself without apology, because that's the second part. So we were speaking to self-awareness. It's like self-awareness and criticism kind of with apology, and then radical acceptance without apology. And I just want to speak to radical acceptance without apology, what that means, right? And I'm going to speak to it in a way that may not make total sense, may not even seem pertinent, but I really do think it is, right? You're always going to have people try to sway the donkey in you, right? Oh, look at what he's doing, look at what she's doing, you see what she wore? I mean, to a point, for example, that the other day I went to a comedy show, and it was like Desi Comedy Live. Oh, don't mention the show, but anyways, and I was wearing like my sweats. Like I was wearing my Warriors sweats, right? And I had someone be like, "Man, you gonna go in that to a comedy show and perform?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm comfy, right? It's a comedy show, man. I'm not needing Dior or something. It's a freaking comedy show. It's absolutely fun, right?" Mm-hmm. But just that thing about keeping up with social norms, right? And like, what if I'm having a bad day and I want to go to like a Muslim gathering, like in all sweats, and just show up at a wedding like that? Everyone's gonna be like, oh my god, Shabana wore sweatpants and sweatshirts and Croc at Jennifer's wedding. Well, guess what? Sharon's wedding, right? Maybe me showing up at that wedding like that when I'm full on depressed was the best I could do, right? And if I'm going to come to my best friend's wedding at all, because I love her, and get out of bed and move to get there, but I'm in sweats and I haven't showered, I don't smell good, but I ain't bothering nobody. Why do I gotta be the talk of a town where everyone's gonna hate on me? Because I know my intention was to show up for my best friend. And that actually happened to me with my best friend, that my best friend, when I got married, organized my bridal shower, everything up and above. And unfortunately, when she got married, I was going through a major depression. I couldn't even throw a party for her. And I remember her mom, very innocently said, hey, where are you? Where are you? Right? And I did kind of put on the Indian outfit without makeup and show up, but I was hurting inside. And watching her walk down the aisle, I just lost my shit. I really did. I was crying my eyes out because it was like my sister was getting married. But me being there, right, was me being present. And that is a present. I'm a present. I'm a walk-in, Mercy Queen present. You are present. We all present. And, you all want to walk around, come to work wearing, Pinky Mattel started this. I support this, We're all presents to each other. We're all presents to each other, Like, I think Uruguay said it, he said life is a mystery. Yesterday was history, and today is like a present. We can quote that in the the back of the green screen. But the other thing that I want to say about the radical acceptance piece without apology is that offering your best of yourself, but only you know what that is. No one else knows what that is who's judging you, right? The second thing I want to talk about radical acceptance is I wanted to speak. Radical acceptance without apology has so many layers to it. When you peel the layer of an onion is when you start to cry, right? When you start to get down to dicing, right? And on the outer surface, I'm gonna share the story in a kind of aside. So radical acceptance without apology means that you do not apologize if you're a boy and your favorite color is pink. Radical acceptance without apology means that you're conscious of being respectful of other people's desires and wants, but you don't do it to a point that you compromise the very essence and core of who, right? There's some things that you may make yourself malleable to in a relationship or in being a daughter or son. But there's some things that if they're the core of you, which you need to define for yourself, that you really like it and you really love it, right? And you don't want to be or do anything else. You need to question kind of the demarcation in your mind that is it worth that person to make myself moldable to fit a mold? Or are there certain things without apology that I love and like that define who I am? And in defining these things as who you are to the core of you, you should not apologize. However, if that core of you means that you're somehow harming another human being or harming an animal, go back to apology. Go back to self-awareness with apology. Because by no way or means am I saying that radical acceptance without apology of yourself means anything else but offering the best offering of love and light and empathy to every human being. The first thing that I just want to go over the head is the book is called Love Me First, Love Me Last. No one wants to publish me. I'm a loser, baby. So why don't you kill me? Okay. It's all good though. We'll get there, right? But it's called Love Me First, Love Me Last. And every topic has a 5-point under the header. The first header it was that I was speaking to was love me first, and the struggle is real. And the first part of the header was embracing my imperfections and why the hell not, right? And then the second one was accepting yourself, basically owning the question of why the hell not should I love myself, and also having self-critical awareness with apology, with radical acceptance without apology. And now we get to the third and my favorite. It's funny how money changes situation. That's my girl right there. Miscue medication leads to my emancipation, right? So it's funny how you don't want to hear my opinion. You guys know what I'm talking about? Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. Lauryn Hill, I would be honored to have you on my show. The Mercy Queen has invited you. Like I said, your song, Tell Him, is my all-time favorite American vibe. Let me be patient, let me be kind, make me unselfish without being blind. But so here's the third point. Now, and it's kind of off the movement of our infamous, God bless him, Bob Marley. His song, No Woman, No Cry. Well, I also got Hey Women Don't Die, right? And also got, don't worry, be happy, right? Well, what I want you all to also remember is it's okay to get angry within limits, okay? I already spoke to this. I already spoke to this about being able to allow yourself to feel, right? But now I want to also talk about the continuance of the feeling and the evolution of yourself in life, right? When things get really, really hard, the natural norm right now is to want to give up, right? And in giving up, it might be ending your life by doing it quick enough where no one can save you. You're falling off a bridge. Unfortunately, well, if you're falling, you can't go back up. You fell, and even if in that second of fall, you're like, oh shit, I shouldn't have done it, you're falling. And whether you are able to make it through paralysis, make it at all, there's left behind people that value you, right? And now here's a poem that I wrote in response to Dana Fall's poem. And I'm going to share it with you because I wrote it when I was in a mental hospital for the first time, which is to me one of the safest places I ever felt in my life. Because I met people there that, yeah, one woman even, if she ever sees me, she hit me in the face the first night I was there. And I didn't press charges, but she became a homie in there because I kept on saying, I want to die, I want to die. She was my roommate. She woke up and she went, you want to die, bitch? Pow! And she slapped me across the face. And then the next day, the police came and said, do you want to press charges? I'm like, no, I'm good. But one thing I noticed in the state of being admitted to a mental hospital in the United States, keep in mind, was the United States far better than what it may be in third world countries, where there's even more of a lack of understanding maybe of mental health, right? But what I found, there are people who are hurting, talking to themselves, hurting in a way that I realized the commonality of all these insane people, is that they're all hurting inward. They're all hurting inward. And because they're trying so hard to not hurt outward and not put it out there, they're hurting themselves. And that's where sometimes I believe the necessity of evolution of these psychiatric meds and psychiatry will come, is when someone gets so imbalanced sometimes, and that's a totally different topic that I don't want to get into, to get off topic. But when I'm talking about, no woman, no die, yeah, no woman, no cry, sure, but no woman, no die, meaning being abused and all these things are also happening to women, children, and men, cut out. It doesn't need to happen, right? It doesn't need to be swallowed. Doesn't need to be simplified. Doesn't need to be okay. Doesn't need to be covered up with makeup. No, right? So when I'm kind of doing a spiff off these songs in a jovial way, I'm really not doing a jovial spiff. I'm doing a serious spiff where I'm keeping it real to the reality of self-guard. And that self-guard is not about, oh, well, you're valuable, so we should self-guard. Every human being brought into this planet, every human being is not absolved of self-respect and being offered the respect. And like I said, when the crucial time comes at a young age where that kid who has Down syndrome or autism is not able to fit in with their peers because they're different, and we're not able to explain to the students and things like that their difference, and it turns into bullying, that's where the depletion of the self-love comes. And I want to make that distinct. So accepting your feelings, right? And that means that if you feel like crying, not having to, put that smiley face on, right? And if you feel upset or frustrated, to be able to communicate it respectfully and be a reciprocant of the respect back in the communication, right? To feel the validation that what you have to say in a moment has value, right? It's almost like kind of the concept of the quiet person in the room. Like everyone's always talking like me, yeah, right. And then all of a sudden you got that one person who's always quiet, says something, and everyone will turn to them and be like, oh my God, it's profound, right? Because that person who's quiet finally said something, right? It's almost like the evolution of anger, right? So when I do get angry, it's like Zenaida recently has this cute post that someone may have made on Instagram about her, but basically it's a post on Instagram that's a reel that she's like I think she's in a show where she's like cussing someone out, her hair is kind of crazy, and it says like, this is me before when I was angry, this is me now. And in the second version of her, she's actually dancing at a club with her hands flipped out, like, what's up, you know? And she's showing that she doesn't care anymore and she's happy, but she doesn't look a mess, right? You should not have to be labeled a mess or considered a mess to feel validated for what you may bring to the table and feeling, right? You should be able to have that in a normal relationship, in a healthy relationship, reciprocated with respect and honor and dignity back, right? Simplify, okay? And you know, I know sometimes our things can get toxic and whatnot, which we may address a little bit later in the other chapters. But when I'm speaking to the concept of accepting your feelings to a point of transformation, right, of self-love, the question is, when you're coming from why should I love myself, the struggle is real, to the concept of if I don't love myself, then why even bother? Why not just give up? If I don't matter to anybody, why not just bounce off, right? And that's sometimes, like I said, where psychiatry comes in, right? Depression comes in. So when I was in the hospital, the mental hospital, I want to share two things. For everyone who gets to be very stickler about rules, right? Like I'm talking about, like, I want to give a shout out to Alicia Keys. I loved her music. I still love her music. And I know she started a no makeup movement. Like today, like I have this huge like thing on my forehead, right? And I actually put makeup on as a choice because it makes me feel right now like prettier in the moment with a little bit of lipstick and a little bit of eyegloss, you know, to wear the makeup and shoot, because I just kind of feel awkward without it, right? It makes me feel good, right? But that doesn't mean that, you know, if I don't want to wear makeup, that I feel that I got to go out there and always put it on to show up so people don't see if I had acne on my skin, or because part of the beauty of who you are will transcend from your presence, and it will glow and emanate, right? And when you're not feeling good and you're not yourself and you are getting angry, that's justified, and exemplifying the justification with also respect, right? And making sure there's boundaries and moderation in your significance, right? So I wanted to respond with a poem that I wrote. When I was in the mental hospital, I was not allowed to wear my hijab. So for 7 days, I was hijabless because they're worried that you may actually kill yourself with the cloth, right? And I remember standing before God and I wanted to pray, and I remember weeping because I couldn't, I mean, it's such a rule in Islam, whether you wear the scarf or not, that when you're praying, you wear your scarf. And I remember standing there feeling the actual nakedness that we believe as Muslims will feel on the day of judgment. I don't mean to get really religious, overly religious for those who are not religious. But what I'm saying is that in the sentiment of wanting to be something, but you cannot at that moment. You're at the lowest of what you might feel as low. And in making these beautiful relationships, imagine leaving the hospital and making a connection with someone, a spiritual connection, who wasn't even a Muslim kid, right? He was Buddhist in philosophy, a young kid. And yet, when you're trying to call him and share, and then you're trying to reach him, you know things aren't right, and then finding out later that, you know, when you meet his mom one day, that he is no more. And keep in mind, when I found out the information, I met her at a literary retreat just to find her, to try to get in contact, because he wasn't responding. And when I got there, she just lowered her eyes and said, "I will tell you later how he's doing." And on the way home from San Francisco to where I live, I was crying my eyes out because she didn't have to say anything. I knew. So one of the poems that I shared with him was that I mentioned in the Emunel song, that I'm not afraid of death and I'm not afraid of pain, but I'm afraid of the umbrellas who protect me from the rain. And I'm talking about someone who may have felt over sheltered, from family, but never sheltered from the world out there, in a way that it's been hurtful and hard to have a mother and father who offered me so much light and love and acceptance, yet going out there sometimes and feeling the exact opposite of that, and just ending up utterly confused about my existence, my self-worth. The bottle's either half full, half empty. That's the normal philosophy, right? Well, let me exaggerate the philosophy. What if you don't need the glass anyways? What if you don't need to look at it as half empty, half full, right? What if you need to look at it like, hey, I don't need water at all, right? Let the stream flow within you of water, right? Let the imagination transcend the need of anything except your existence and the love that it provides for yourself and the others that you meet. And it's a very transcendent philosophy that to me is a very spiritual ideation that I explain more in my book. But in response to that, when I was in the mental hospital and I was looking out the window, I noticed a boulder out the window. And you're not really able to go outside, but you got some window views in those ADX hospitals. And keep in mind, religiously there was no Quran in the mental hospital at the time, and I ended up reading the book of Job from the Bible, right? And it actually did touch my spirit in reading it, right? And so having said that, sometimes you make do with what you can do with. And it wasn't like I was necessarily reading it as a form of like worship necessarily, but as a form of comfort for me to feel the peace of spiritual thought and spiritual reflection. And I honestly thought it was beautiful. And I also know that the Lauryn Hill song that I speak about, let me be patient, let me be kind, I think is also from the faith itself. So having said that, I actually wrote this poem when I came out, and I wanted to share this poem with my friend. Because basically all night I was writing poetry. I'm like, hey, look at this poem. He's like, man, I want to go to sleep. I'm in room 204. You're in 109. Leave me alone. I'm just kidding. But anyways, I wanted to share this poem with him, and he never got to hear it. So I'm sharing it with all of you. And it may not be that good. I'm not like a perfectionist poet, but they're just feelings, right? And the poem is called The Boulder in the Spring because I just noticed the water flowing and the boulder be stuck. And I felt the sensation of like, imagine as people sometimes when you feel stuck and yet there's still water flowing around the boulder, right? And yet if you want the full flow of the water, you want to remove the boulder, correct? All right. So it's called The Boulder in the Spring, and this is dedicated to my soulmate in the Saini bin. All right. The Boulder in the Spring. Everything about life is demanding stillness. My body's inability to move feels like a heavy boulder from a river that I cannot drink from, and from a well of which I choose not to drink. Motion and speech have become pain, silenced by sleep. Every part of me wants to enter into presence, the ability to mindfully create and move beyond the stream into the source of happiness where thirst yearns not for water and my heart needs not the desire for a quenched thirst. I am incapable to see past my own misery and want death to call upon me. But I fear God will not take me until many years hence, so that I can feed those who are more hungry, despite my own. I am aware of my gifts that latch onto me like water that is not disturbed by the boulder, flowing freely. It is enough to drink and has always been an eternal spring. And I can't say his name for HIPAA, but this is to my soulmate who, in life, for those of you guys, when you don't feel the self-love and you're about to lose hope, this is what I want to say to you guys. There are people in my life that had they not been in my life, I wouldn't be here. And maybe it's everyone. Maybe it's almost everyone. And when you're talking about the transformation of the self-evolution of self-love, understand that you may have value to something as simplified as your cat outside, or your dog. And you might not think that's worth anything, right? But it is, right? Or you might have value to your coworker that is going through a depression themselves, and when they see you at work, their sky lights up in a way that you can't even imagine. You might have value in a hospital when you're helping someone that you might just think you're being kind and doing your job. Well, maybe you doing your job is saving their lives. So understand that in global empathy, right? Mercy, love, kindness, these are things that hopefully are within all of us. And if you're in need of it, understand that the first place to find it is within yourself. And when you give it to yourself in a way that transforms your own dignified presence, you're going to be able to offer the light and the love. and almost be like a beautiful flower to everyone you meet. You know, my father sent this philosophy to me as a child. He basically sent me two things he really engraved in my mind. Number one, like, funerals don't end for anybody if you don't want to go, and neither do weddings. People are going to move on. People are going to still do them, right? But another thing that he told me is that when you go to a gathering, let's just say I got into a fight with my son or my husband, and I go there and my face is all upset, well, people mirror you. So if I go somewhere and I got into a fight and all of a sudden my face is long, I got into a fight with my mom, for example, and my face is long at the gathering, everyone's going to notice. It's going to affect the gathering, right? We are mirrors of each other. But like I said in the original video, that not focusing on the mirror to the point where you're allowing people to talk, where you're enacting your decisions based on the other versus yourself, but try to represent who you are within with that beautiful, elegant grace of fortitude, of happiness and laughter, so that when you mirror, you're like mirroring you in fullness without apology, and loving others and shedding the light you have to offer. My father also told me that, you know, it's a prophetic wisdom that even a smile is charity, right? And I don't smile much, but I mean, I laugh. If you make me laugh, I'm crazy. I can laugh, right? But one thing he told me is, like, you know, in every encounter you meet, even if it's just giving someone a flower from your yard, you know, going and checking on your neighbors, saying, hi, how are you, right? It's like offering a rose to everyone you meet. Your presence, right? Your presence. So having said that, that is number 3. I'm going to take a break until we get to 4 and 5. The number 4 of the hands of the smile, I'm being silly, but remember I told you there's 5 points to what my mom said, not all 5 fingers are the same, is defining yourself cannot be defined, right? And I was just talking to my special person here who's helping me with videography, and she basically said the love journey is never ending, right? The self-love journey and knowledge of that is never ending. And speaking to that, you know, it's like, you know, it's like a genie's lamp, right? Like, you know, mirror, mirror on the wall. You know, that's not, my son's looking at me like, you know, talking about his shorts and his Bahama blue shorts. You're having distraction time. But, you know, in terms of like this magical genie potion of just, right? Genie shows up, 3 wishes. Everyone, if they wish something on when they're 10, might be different from what they may wish when they're in their 20s and 30s. And I'll give you an example of that. I was at a party, and my 5-year-old son, he used to love watching people pick up the garbage truck, right? And we're at a party, and someone asked, now he's like 5 or 6, and they asked him, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? And he's fascinated by the way the garbage truck picks up the garbage. And he goes, I want to be a garbage man collector, right? And everyone's like, oh, they do niggas are laughing, right? And I'm just kind of ignoring him, like, whatever, man. Because I'll be honest, if my son wants to work for BFI and collect garbage and he's happy, he likes the government job, I don't got a problem with it. I got no social demarcation that my son must be a doctor, a heart surgeon. If that's what he does and it makes him happy to drive that truck, and if that, there's no shame in that. It's a necessity in our society. It's a good paying job, right? And now in 5 years, if he tells me he wants to do something else and do something that maybe I think he may not be able to do, then I also got to reflect and say, hey, do I have the right to limit him, right? Do we know of artists that legally blind but know how to play the piano, and the musicians? Yes. Does the impossible happen to the possible? Yes. Do people who are physically unfit end up winning national marathons? Yes. Right? So I am never going to tell my kids that you cannot be a basketball player, you're not tall enough. Or, no, be what you are, come as you are, and realize that the transformation of yourself is a learning process every day. So do not let another person say, hey, man, I thought, man, you were this one day. You were an alcoholic, man. Why are you trying to be clean, man? You trying to make a new day? And then even if you make a mistake again, it's okay. Make a mistake, get back up again. Be who you are and what you want to be that day. Define it for yourself on your terms with the reflection. So I wanted to read 2 poems from this, the Rumi Little Book of Love, in relations to what I'm trying to say. The secret truth is not unraveled by questioning or giving away your wealth and position. You cannot exalt the heart with mere words. Pain is the price that the heart has to pay. And the reason I wanted to speak to it is part of empathy in life and understanding pain, part of the process of pain, right? What I've gone through in bullying, what I've gone through in the complete eradication of my own self-worth has given me the ability to express to me now, years later, right? Years later, what self-worth means to me, so that maybe if there's someone out there that needs this, right? There may be someone out there that might be like, did you see her? She got the white glove, she got the sunglasses, she got the crown, she got lipstick on, she crazy. All right, I am solidified crazy, right? I'm okay with that. I'm okay if you want to call me anything. But if this podcast, if me going through these 10 lessons helps anyone out there, male, female, child, adult, to reflect on and putting into words what I felt, then I say I'm into that. And I'm grateful. And another poem that I wanted to read is, it's on page 6, is when you stop admiring yourself and let the eyes of the heart open your vision to vast other worlds, then all you do will become admirable. And in saying that, when you're able to laugh at yourself, when you're able to make mistakes and put bloopers up there, when you're able to be unconventional, when you're able to say, hey, I'm kind of questioning, what does that mean in an orthodox text? When you're able to look at someone and not just see green hair or piercings or purple hair, or when you're able to look at someone beyond their race, their autism, their disability, when you're able to just enjoy the moment for what it is and as it is with the pureness of the moment, maybe you'll be admired. But even in being admired, maybe that's not necessarily the ultimate goal. Maybe it's just being. In our prophetic wisdom, when our prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, wanted to say something important, he would say it 3 times and repeat it 3 times. And so of like the formation of this 5 elements or points that I'm bringing to the first chapter, there's a very common nomenclature proverb that says that to love your neighbor as you would love yourself. And what I would like to say is love your neighbor as you would love yourself. Love yourself. Love yourself. I told you guys I would come back in this designer red and white dress, and the reason I wanted to share the story with all of you is I was in Mecca, Medina with my father, and it was a hard trip to take because for many years I wanted to go with him back to Mecca, Medina. In 2014 I went. And keeping in mind that from a moment in 2018 of feeling immense guilt with God and going there asking for forgiveness to going to God now the second time. My grandmother was alive for many years, and my mom and my dad helped take care of my mother's mother. My father participated in her care, and he would always say, I'm never going to leave her, I'm never going to leave her. And when she passed away, we were able to go on a trip called the Sacred Caravan and go to a mini pilgrimage with my mom and my dad and my husband and my older son. And the beauty of the trip is that it wouldn't have been even made possible had some of our co-workers given up their Easter vacation. So imagine that after many years now of me wanting to take a trip and God putting it into effect. And the reason I'm wearing this red and white polka dot masterpiece is my father comes to me when I'm sleeping in the room and he's like, Shabana, guess what? I bought the most beautiful prayer beads for you, and I also purchased the most beautiful dress, and you're gonna love it. And I'm like, okay, he must have got me something gold, something pure white. I mean, something that I'm just gonna go goo gaga over. And he comes back and he basically shows me on a hanger this red and white polka dot concoction dress that, by the way, I hate polka dots. But he brought it for me, and he was just like, this is the most beautiful dress I've ever seen, and it's gonna look so good on you. And it is one of my favorite dresses, in hindsight, because he brought it for me. Two of my favorite Ed Sheeran songs, and Ed Sheeran, if you ever want to meet the Mercy Queen, she'd be honored to have you, is Photograph and Beautiful People. Because in the world today, Beautiful People, he's got these 2 beautiful people that are just, if you've seen the video, it's so brilliant about beautiful people surrounded by glamour and just excess and just, the rawness of what may be the media hype of things, right? and just two ordinary people who are just on a vacation that just wanting to enjoy themselves. They may have won a trip. And then also, you know, the beauty of the song Photograph, when Ed Sheeran, who's like an elite star, is just showing home videos of himself on his video, right? Memories. And in the end of the day, when you're talking about your presence and your value to your presence and your dignity and self-worth in presence, I just want to say is that sometimes your greatest treasures are not things that you can hold on to. Sometimes your greatest treasures are a dress that you may never have really liked, but it was given to you by someone that you really, really love. And in the moment sometimes when holding on to love is not easy, I just hope and pray that the first chapter benefited you in resolving the reality that you have worth, number one, and in understanding who you are is the key to aligning yourself with the knowledge and awareness of that worth. And then number three, that at times when you feel like you kind of want to blow that candle out and not continue, that maybe just breathing through the moment, allowing yourself to feel, you know, the light still glows on, right? And to really embrace yourself in the hopes that embracing yourself, you will offer the love and the light and the empathy and the mercy. I'm going to keep that. I'm not going to cut it. And the empathy that we need as people to smile and laugh and get through the tears and hopefully add into the inclusion of self-evolution of giving dignity to every human being. So this is the first broadcast, whatever you call it, for the Mercy Queen. I want to take my team member who's here, who's been videoing with me. I don't want to say her name out loud, but I want to thank her. I also want to thank my team who's been doing my my Instagram videos, my friends and my family. And I want to tell my father that I don't like polka dots, but I love you with all my heart.